When Chapter 5 opens on a non-weird save, it's obvious Chris has spent the night without us, weak and seemingly turning a sickly green before allowing us to control them again. This green color is actually a more grayscale yellow, meaning that without us, Chris becomes more monochrome. When Chris allows the player to control them again, there are a few new details in the shared bedroom they're too tired to keep from us. One of these details is a USB microphone by the computer. This USB microphone could be the giant microphone seen after the Patat fight when returning to a completed Chapter 4 save. The player can actually keep the honey toast that Toriel asks for by just leaving the house with it. Chris will eat it during the transition from outside of the school to inside, or it can be given to Asgore for some dialogue. Asgore will mention how crumbs get everywhere, and the bread that Sans gives the player mentions how it tends to leave crumbs, which seems to be a reference to Mother 1's breadcrumbs glitch that allows the player to reach out of bounds. This is foreshadowing the Weird Route ending of this chapter, which entirely skips the upcoming Chapter 6. Hacker continues their trend of mentioning slightly off versions of real-world games, this time referencing Roblox, aka Roblox. These aren't just nods, however, and actually reference upcoming events, with a Susie dressing minigame and the secret boss of this chapter requiring pink coins and platforming to unlock. This isn't where the game references end, as the Pippins by the racetrack in front of the castle references Umamasume Pretty Derby, mentioning how Susie could race other girls and how it could make a lot of carrots. If the player bought any S poisons from Spamton's shop in Chapter 2, they can now be purified with the wafer for S potions, revealing them to be car-branded energy drinks, likely Big Shot Auto as seen in one of Spamton's posters in Chapter 2. S potions are now currently the highest single healing item in the game. The trashy trio fight in Castletown Bakery is a parody of Deltarune's hidden bosses, having to collect the 3 members, the Patat motif, and the line "the air crackles with something but it smells bad," all adding to the joke. Nubert's hair and the line "going even further beyond" are references to Goku from Dragon Ball, though technically Nubert should have the longer Super Saiyan 3 hair, since that's the form Goku is referring to in that particular quote. When picking an all-duck outfit for Susie, it will say, "This outfit sucks ass," in reference to the dialogue when trying to make an all-duck thrashing machine back in Chapter 1. The takoyaki stand in the festival contains multi-leveled references to Undertale, and may be telling of the fate of one of Hometown's missing members. The striped bird offers to sell the player takoyaki in exchange for 2 gold, before quickly saying they're free. G is the currency in Undertale, standing for gold, and has only been mentioned one other time in Deltarune. If Chris is the only one to eat it, they'll find a fortune cookie revealing the discount code BALL, a reference to the Undertale Ball Easter egg that plays a tune during the game's title splash screen. The striped bird and the 2 nearby NPCs are all goners in Undertale, with the bird referencing fun value, the randomly generated number that determines random events in Undertale. We the player haven't seen onions since Chapter 2, despite them promising to tell us what was causing the song they heard beneath the water. The fact that the striped bird was saying don't wait by the lake in Chapter 4, the takoyaki actually having raw onion inside when fed to Susie, Noelle not eating it due to being vegetarian, and the goner who mentions having a piece of Gaster in Undertale is holding a takoyaki in the same way in this scene, all seem to imply that onion has been killed, cooked, and now eaten. The ice cream Sans keeps for himself looks like the Gaster Blaster used during his fight in Undertale. If the player chooses Chris and Susie for the strength tester, the 2 will just smack each other with the hammers, to which Susie will say, "I think that totally healed me." This is a reference to Malleus's ability to fix the party. If the player hadn't done so back in Chapter 4, it's possible to give Tenna away, now with Noelle in the party, sparking new dialogue about how she thought Chris would keep it, just in case. There's unique music for if the player chooses Bratty or Catty to admit to Burger Pants that Pizzarina isn't real, both of which sample a different Mario Paint sound effect. Cat Fession samples the meow sound effect, while Brat Fession samples the baby sound. Despite the Floridins being this Dark World's Rudins, they cannot be spared with a glow shard. If the player loses to the first enemy Floridin they encounter, the party will wake up in a nearby bed instead of having to reload the most recent save. If the player gave the Ralsei plush to Ralsei in Chapter 2, Ralsei will have it during this scene. This unique post-battle cutscene caused players to get this chapter's dog check room if they lose this fight after losing the final battle. The dog check for this chapter is a Danganronpa reference, with the music sampling Mr. Monokuma's lesson. The Your Dad's Best Friend or Flowery motif was originally an unknown song that the player could play on the grand piano in Chapter 4, prompting Susie to call the melody a little annoying. The standard fight music in this chapter, Rakuichi Buster, actually began life as a fan cover of Rude Buster, originally being used in the Switch trailer for Chapter 2, and now having an official inclusion in the game, Rakuichi being the name of the musician who made the cover. After receiving the red ribbon item, Susie agrees to equip ribbon armor. The description of the red ribbon, a ribbon with an inscription to drive away resident spirits if they don't pay, implies that this is an eviction notice. Equipping Susie with the red ribbon changes her talking sprite to show it. The appearance is based on Toho's Reimu Hakure. This outfit can be seen again when fighting Shiri if the player cuts the party's outfit. And Ralsei even has a hat reminiscent of Ran Yakumo, another Toho character. The previously mentioned Shiri Darkeners make their return in this chapter, originally appearing in Chapter 1 but not as an enemy, and the recruitment text reveals why. A familiar dancer with sharp legs only fights when provoked, idolizes Blue. They didn't fight in Chapter 1 because there was no reason to. The Floridan Susie has trouble flirting with is perfectly mathematically bisexual, with a 50-50 chance to ask for a hot gamer boyfriend or a hot gamer girlfriend. The player can check flowery stats when he's in the party. He's equipped with a winning smile, his Sunday best, and the Petal Mantle, referencing the Shadow Mantle obtainable in Chapter 3. He can't unequip anything, but he can be given items, though Susie seems to think it's a waste. The fox-like enemies Netsuki are based on Kitsune, mischievous fox spirits, and Netsuki, carved charms that take the form of animals and spirits. That's why they can transform, and their attacks are all about spotting imposters. Reactivating the pressure plate puzzle that requires 4 people before talking to Ralsei results in him trying to help and splatting instead. This isn't the only puzzle trouble he has during this chapter, as if he's muted during the 4 moving blocks puzzle, he'll become more and more agitated during each reset. Upon destroying one of the dark fruits using Fruit Buster, Susie will say, "fresh from the juice," in reference to a similar line spoken by both Tenna and Spamton during their boss fights. Ralsei's dialogue sprite when explaining changing controls in the config menu is one of his concept art sprites. The Chapter 5 variant of Top Chef, Hops Chef, is based on the hops flower, with the name playing into their rotoscope jumping jacks. The sourdough minigame is likely a nod to Break the Targets from the Smash Bros. Series, or the in-game version, Super Smashing Fighters. Just like every chapter since 2, Chapter 5 contains a hidden image_friend sighting. At the very top of the long platforming section after getting the feather, if the player jumps off to the left, oh I meant the right, my bad, to the right off screen and uses the act menu, friend can be seen very briefly before reducing the party to 1 HP. The Scarecrow Darkener's She seem to be a play on Sonic the Hedgehog, with quotes like, "Did you see that? Too slow," and Sonic Dash. The entire character seems to be a joke on the fact that the blue blur is the fastest thing alive, while She is completely stationary. She is unique in that instead of running away when defeated violently, they instead remain, waving a white flag of surrender. Just like the previous chapters, Chapter 5 has an egg room, one that isn't hard to find if the player found one in a previous chapter. Within the Chapter 3 egg room, the man behind the tree mentions, "On Sunday, I harvest the wheat," meaning this patch of wheat must be cut or harvested repeatedly until a balloon appears. Chasing the balloon leads the player to a room where they must interact with 6 flowers in order, unlocking an annoying dog watering can to make a path out of the room. The annoying dog will take this watering can back from the player repeatedly, as if the developer of the game themselves is trying to stop you from finding this egg. The player is then brought to what appears to be the first egg room again, even returning their stats to the first level. The man seems to think that this is the last time we meet them if all other eggs have been received, seemingly completing the cycle. During the Aqua and Seth fight, Seth uses battle data from the pre-feather fight with Aqua, utilizing the player's attack they were damaged most by. However, if the player wasn't damaged at all during the fight with Aqua, they'll skip straight to the multiple attack stage. Additionally, if the player manages to get hit by that attack, Aqua and Seth will celebrate and use it again. If the player is hit by it while at 1 HP, the duck has a custom animation before game over. The Shino Beetles have a little dance animation when they're alone and can be spared, the same animation as Migasp from Undertale. The sound they make when first encountering them is a well-known meme sound, but began life in Japanese kabuki theater as a multi-use vocal cue. Most of their dialogue during this fight is based on the Beatles, like Blackbird or Helter Skelter, and Ralsei listening to a White Album on their R action. When you talk to the ones in Quicksand, they'll say, "Won't somebody please help me?" in reference to an old tweet by Toby Fox about a lecture they were attending on Quicksand, and probably also the Beatles song Help. Attempting to jump the wall before Blue puts their platforms down prompts unique dialogue from Susie and Ralsei about how it may be impossible to clear. Players have actually managed to use a bug with the bounce flower to clear it, but as a result, they softlock themselves. This bug has since been patched out. The fun gang dressed like Ace Attorney characters during trial time, with Chris dressed as either Miles Edgeworth or Francisco Von Karma, Susie as Detective Gumshoe, and Ralsei as either Trucy Wright or Maya Fey. The Evidence train plan, which involves altering train tracks to make a smashing machine, may be a reference to, and there really is no delicate way to put this, Mickey's Dick Smasher by Splendid Lad. Splendid Lad did concept art and enemy design for Chapter 2, so this reference isn't all that far-fetched. The chapter's opening jingle seems to be based on the Space Runway Idion eye catch. During their cafe hangout, Ralsei mentions smoked herbs to Yellow, who says, "Smoking herbs? That's illegal, son." A potential nod to the Ralsei chuffing a fat dart meme. There are a number of Family Guy references in this chapter, with the Yellow's fallen pose, Seth's word attack using some of the words from Queen's social media attack to make Family Guy funny moments, and the hidden message in the alphabet soup spelling ooh. When chapters 3 and 4 were released, the Deltarune newsletter warned of spoilers for the game, with an example picture of chapter 3 and 4 all yummies. We didn't know this at the time, but it's a reference to Orange's Omega ability after collecting 6 food items, or all yummies. The frequent use of chew Orange uses when speaking comes from the Japanese onomatopoeia for the sound a mouse makes. That's why the hidden choo-choo train isn't a choo-choo train. Ralsei saying he choo-choo chooses Susie and Chris is a reference to the Simpsons episode I Love Lisa. When having to collect at least 3 foxes to progress, the player can get unique dialogue if they push all the terracotta statues down. Right before the top castle area, Susie and Ralsei will say, "Let's go," and then the name the player drew from the bucket all the way back in chapter 1. Just like every previous chapter, if the player interacted with Starwalker all the way back in chapter 1, they will make a few appearances in this chapter. Interacting with them in the top of castle area will reveal dialogue implying that this is the end of Starwalker's journey, as they transform into Final Starwalker. Final Starwalker's spiky new appearance is similar to the Final Starman enemies from Earthbound. Despite this, Starwalker still appears in the final cutscene of the chapter, greeting Susie in Castletown. If the player messes up too many times during the final castle platforming section, a part of the wall will open, revealing a chamber with one of Jackenstein's pumpkins that can make Ralsei longer. The secret boss of the chapter, Pink, was seen much earlier in this chapter. She's the cliffside shopkeeper who sold us the key to her boss room, and can even be seen hanging out with Orange after her fight. The save point mentions how the shop is facing the sun like a sunflower. Sunflowers facing the sun is actually a common misconception, but it means that Chris believes it since they made this dark world. Pink will have unique dialogue if the player has obtained this chapter's egg and been damaged by Friend, revealing she knew someone with an entire pack of cats and how they love protein, hunting for it endlessly. Strangely enough, this dialogue was added in a post-launch patch, meaning it wasn't possible to see by day 1 players like yours truly. Backtracking to the second diner after completing the Flower Castle reveals 2 new non-combative Darkners, an Archer variant of Terracotta and a Mantis based on the Orchid Mantis. While using Ralsei's new Revive Song spell, there's a slight chance that Spamton will be one of the Healing Angels, much to the Ralsei Angels' dismay. Fans of Deltarune have compared Flowery to Mugen's Ronald McDonald due to the insane strength, constant voice lines, and the use of JoJo poses, particularly Jotaro Kujo in Heritage for the Future, though the knight still beats Flowery in spite of this power. Flowery gets the same facial scar when injured as King. A flower torn in half was foreshadowed in chapter 3, but the quote when interacting with it, "and yet it stands," may mean that Flowery is going to be okay thanks to Susie's efforts. Sadly though, the Flowery scarf turns into the broken scarf after Flowery has been defeated. The constantly changing sunset comes from the different colored lamps above each flower, as seen in the post-Dark World area of Flower King. And that was 50 Fast Deltarune Chapter 5 facts. I hope you enjoyed. Though we never got a release date at the end of this chapter like we did for 4, the Steam FAQ says a 2027 planned release is in store for Chapter 6. And, for obvious reasons, if you've played your Weird Route save, Chapter 6's production is going to be a lot easier than previous chapters. Alright, thanks for watching, and until next time.